Hi mga kaibigan, happy Monday. Medyo marami tayong pag-uusapan. Thank you sa mga manonood and nanonood and manonood eventually. Hopefully you can share para medyo lumaki pa yung audience natin, right? Okay, usually I'd like to stay away from talking about personalities. Nakalagay dyan sa title natin, we're gonna talk about yung sinasabing discrimination against Sass Sasot. Hindi ko siya kilala, so I read more into it. So, medyo kailangan natin siyang himayin. We need to unpack kasi maraming different elements, right? So, I don't like talking about people kasi I'd rather be discussing topics or ideas instead na personalities. However, I'll make an exception kapag yung tao na pinag-uusapan natin ay may relevance sa causes or topics that I believe in or I feel should be part of the national conversation, right? So medyo pag-uusapan natin yan kasi significant yung mga matatouch upon natin. Alright, what I like to discuss as well are topics or ideas na lumalabas sa feed natin, yung mga medyo trending, para nakaka-relate yung common tao, which is essentially what I'm doing. I'm a common tao na naggagawa ng political commentary. And all, as I keep saying before, all of the eventual monetization ay do-donate natin for the cause that we believe in, which is the Angat Buhay NGO, right? So please share. So, unang-una, main topic natin, si Sass Sasot. Si Sass Sasot, hopefully I'm saying that properly, hindi ko siya kilala, but lumabas siya sa feed ko. So I had to read more into it. And I'll keep telling you this, we need to be balanced. Hindi tayo panatiko, hindi tayo pro somebody 100%. We cannot be like that kasi we're coming from a progressive standpoint. So ang isang progresibo, kailangan balanced yung views natin. We need to be looking at the different, let's say, statements coming from opposing sides. So tiningnan natin yung istorya and ang nakita natin sa feed natin, ang highlight is mag-graduation speech si Sass. And pinatayan siya ng ilaw, and pinatayan siya ng microphone in that commencement speech, right? So sabi ng iba't ibang kampo na discrimination yan, sabi naman ng ibang kampo na meron namang religious freedom dapat yung nasa opposing party, which is the Church of God. So we're gonna talk about that. So sino ba to si Miss Sasot? Siya ay merong 900,000 followers in Facebook. So apparently sikat siya on the BBM side of the spectrum. And dati siyang Manila Times former political commentary. Tapos nag-graduate din siya. Marami siyang kaalaman actually. Masters in International Relation sa Leiden University. Hindi ko alam kung tama yung pag-pronounce ko. Leiden University, it's one of the top 100 in the THE World Rankings in university. So bigat nitong university. So nag-MA siya doon in international relations. So that means she has a good, set of head above her body. So matalino to, right? And transgender din siya. And she's been, I don't know if she's been living in the Netherlands for a while, but of course she's an LGBTQ advocate, obviously, right? Okay. So ang nangyari ay na in-invite siya ng isang school sa Cavite. Ang pangalan ay Southern Philippines Institute of Science and Technology. So, abbreviate natin SPIST. In-invite siya to be a commencement speaker. And then, yung Church of God, which is the owner of the venue. Church siya, Pentecostal Church. I had to read into this as well. Hindi ako familiar sa kanila. Church of God Dasmariñas, yung specific chapter. Pag tinignan mo yung Facebook page nila, ang related pages ay, ano bang nakalagay dito? Ay Victory and CCF. So, I don't know kung part sila ng congregation na yon, pero just based on the Facebook page, Victory and CCF yung related pages nila. So, I don't know how related they are really. Okay. So, ang nangyari, kwentuhan lang ng konti, ay nagkaroon sila ng argument between those two parties. Sinasabi na discrimination, sinasabi rin na versus freedom of religion, right? So these are the facts of the case by reading the two different Facebook pages na tinignan natin. So na-invite siya ng mga June 1. June 3 yung event. June 1, na-confirm na niya publicly sa Facebook page na and pati nung SPIST na okay, ako yung graduation speaker. June 1 na-confirm yun. June 3 yung event. So that's about, 2 days difference. Tapos, in-approach daw yung SPIST nung Church of God, owner of the venue, church, na sinasabi sa kanila na you have to change your speaker, essentially, dun sa commencement. Kasi nga, in their church, they don't allow, as a policy, an LGBTQ performer or speaker to use their venue, right? So, essentially, what happened was 12 hours before the event, so sobrang medyo malapit na, nagkaroon ng usapan yung SPIST at yung Church of God Dasma na sabi nung C of G or Church of God ay so either you change your, let's say, your speaker, 2 things they laid out, nung nalaman nila yung speaker, change your speaker, or change the venue, tapos ibabalik namin yung down payment sa inyo. So, 2 options yung binigay dun sa SPIST. Change the speaker, kasi nga, again, sila dun sa LGBTQ. And then number 2, change the venue, balik yung down payment. Right? So, nangyari daw, sabi ng pastor, ay nag-apologize yung SPIST na sorry for the inconvenience, okay na. Parang nag-decide daw sila towards the second option, palitan yung speaker. Okay. Pero nanigurado pa rin yung Church of God, according to their pastor, na release statement na, okay, medyo meron ng breach of trust. Kausapin uli natin sila na hindi na tayo, napapatayan natin ng ilaw, papatayan natin ng sound system. Sinabi nila to talaga dun sa church sa SPIST. Sorry, medyo maingay yung aso namin, nag-aaway sila. Sa SPIST na, if you do that, if you go ahead with your plan, papatayin namin yung ilaw, papatayin namin yung sound system. So they were given a heads up. Although verbal siya, ito yung sinabi ng pastor. So sabi nung SPIST, okay na. Right? Pero the very next day, or June 3 event, yun na nga yung nangyari. So pinatayan ng ilaw, and then pinatayan ng sound system. Right? Yun yung nakita natin sa feed natin. But eto tayo, mag-unpack tayo, so bear with me para makita natin kung ano yung sides ng isa't isa. Okay. Binasa ko syempre yung page nilang dalawa, and eto yung mga dapat yung malaman, right? To be balanced about it. So, for the SPIST to use the event or to use the venue, nagbigay sila ng donation, quote-unquote, na 210,000. That's a fee, essentially, donation to use the venue, right? 210,000. Ganun pala kamahal. But anyway, right? Besides the point. So, yun yung part ng payment ng venue, right? Okay. Now, having that as a premise, I'll have to go back to the discrimination question, right? Discrimination ba na sabihin na porket may speaker na LGBTQ na hindi sila pabor doon, dapat i-stop na? To all intents and purposes, I mean, progressive tayo, anong petsa na, yes, discrimination yan, right? Hindi porket galing sa kabilang kampo, we're going to negate that fact. It's a discrimination kasi nga, LGBTQ people are humans, they deserve their respect, right? However, on the other side of the argument, meron ding religious freedom argument. Do they have the right to actually say no because it's their house, their roots? Right? Kasi venue nila yon, and if it's within their religious belief na we cannot use our venue to host somebody that's against our religious belief, then I would argue that's also their right. That's also within their right. And dahil venue nga nilang ginagamit, that's also within their right. Tama? Okay, stay with me. Tingnan natin yung iba pang kwento. So, 210,000. Tapos, ang nangyari pa dito ay, ang condition daw ni COG ay maghanap sila ng ibang place, babalik yung down payment. Sinabi na natin yun, right? Tapos, sinabi ng pastor na, itong statement from the pastor, I respect the LGBTQ community. They are human beings. But how about the respect for one's belief? Pinaparaphrase ko na, but that's the gist of it. So, yun yung sabi ko na meron ding argument ng religious freedom, which is something that's that's heavy as well, and we have to agree with, right? Okay, so inoffer daw ng SPIST na hindi na papuntahin sa stage si Sasa or si Miss Sasot, Madam Sasot, na iba na lang yung magbabasa ng speech niya. Nakaupo na lang siya sa audience, and iba na lang yung magbabasa. Ayaw ng Church of God. It's their venue, it's their rules, right? So ayaw nila, hindi sila pumayag. So, SPIST decided to go ahead with it anyway, kahit na meron na daw silang usapan verbally na kapag ginawa nyo yan, papatayan namin ng ilaw. So sinabi na sa kanila, they still decided to go ahead with it. Right? Again, we agree that it's discrimination, especially kapag outside of the church venue, discrimination yan. But it's within the church venue. It's their house, it's their rules. Right? So meron ding religious freedom aspect. Right? Okay. Ano pang mga other juicy tidbits dito? So, again, SPIST apologized daw to the Church of God, pero they still decided to go ahead with it, with a speaker, right? Okay. Tapos, may mga nagwe-weigh in about the disagreements na nangyari, right? So, sabi ni Madam Sasot na, yes, hindi na ako magpo-pursue ng case against them kasi nga yung kontrata na pinirma niya, it's with the SPIST, and no-honor naman yung kontrata between them, right? So, labas na daw siya doon, right? Pero nag-weigh in si Cavite Governor na si John Vic Remulla. Ang sabi niya, nag-post siya na meron kasing provincial decree. It's called Provincial Ordinance sa Cavite. Ang sabi, it's unlawful to discriminate against any person on the basis of their gender identity. With emphasis, syempre, dun sa mga LGBTQ community natin. So definitely, we agree with that. Anong petsa na? Dapat lang, di ba? Dapat na may ganong ordinance. However, what is Governor Remulla going to do about it? Is he going to sue the Church of God Dasma? Is he going to file a case against them because of that? Normally, yung mga cases dito sa provincial ordinance na to, ay that involves employers, mga kumpanya na nagdi-discriminate. Kasi nga, wala naman silang religious freedom, right? But, kung gagawin niya yun, if he decides to file a case against them, babanggain niya yung nasa constitution natin. Yung nasa constitution natin, ang sabi, no law shall be passed parang establishing a religion, one, and then number two, or prohibiting the free exercise of religion. So, anong mas matimbang? Yung provincial ordinance o yung ating nasa saligang batas na no law shall be passed na pagbibigay ng free exercise of their religion? That's exactly what the Church of God was doing, a free exercise of their religion. Kahit na hindi tayo agree dun sa belief nila, hindi tayo agree na sa religion nila i-discriminate yung LGBTQ, hindi tayo agree dyan. But that is their religion. They have the freedom to do that, right? That's within, that's enshrined in our Constitution. Okay. Moving on to a different thread na in-expound na ni Madam Sasot, right? Ang sabi niya, so hindi na siya maghahabla, pero it's beyond the discrimination issue daw. Which I agree, may discrimination, pero beyond pa daw yun. Kasi nga, nanghingi ng 210,000 na donation, right? So sabi niya, religious groups should be taxed for donations due to commercial transactions. So ito daw yung mga religious group na parang tinatago in the guise of donations, itong mga commercial transaction naman daw. Dapat may tax, which I 100% agree on. Kasi if you're only shielding yourself from taxes or from tax purposes, pero ito, medyo obvious naman na commercial transaction siya kasi venue siya, right? And papagamit yung venue, right? So that should be taxed, right? However, she needs to go beyond the Church of God and call out all of the religions doing this practice. Ang daming religion din, hindi lang Church of God, na nanghihingi ng donation for commercial purposes or for other purposes other than the religion, right? Hindi na ako mag-enumerate, pero that's very obvious in our society. Na kung ano man yung religion na yan, they're asking for donations, pero kung ano man yung bayad na makukuha nila, kahit na commercial naman talaga yung transaction, like in this case, it's an example, that should be taxed accordingly, right? Hindi porket religious, my belief is that although religious organization ka, there are specific things that you do that may be beyond the religious nature of the organization. So yung specific things na yun should be taxed, should be transparent, right? Okay, agree tayo dyan. Tapos, may mga sinasabi pa dito na I definitely, this is my position. I definitely agree that any discrimination, especially against the LGBTQ community, is horrible. It's deplorable. Anong petsa na? Ulit-ulitin natin yan. Pero, may religious freedom pa din, which we also have to respect. Their house, their rules. Some examples. What if, parang gagawa tayo ng parallel example, right? So what if merong venue? And etong venue na to ay, let's say, sa Philippine Arena, as an example. Alam natin pag-aari ng Iglesia ni Cristo yan, right? So itong school na to, they know ng stance ng Iglesia ni Cristo, they are against eating anything with blood or dinuguan. Let's say, for example, dinuguan, right? Alam ng school na yan. Let's say SPIST, for example. But, you decided na you're still going to go ahead with an event doing dinuguan eating or dinuguan eating festival in the Philippine Arena. Pag nalaman ng iglesia yan, what is the iglesia going to do? Of course, they're going to demand that you cancel the event. Kasi nga that goes against their religious beliefs, right? So that's well within the bounds of their religious freedom kasi they don't believe in that. They don't advocate that for different religious reasons, right? Another example, what if merong venue owned by, let's say, a Muslim community? And you rented that venue knowing full well na ang stance nila against pagkain ng baboy ay they don't agree with that. That's against their beliefs. Kinancel nila nung nalaman na magkakaroon kayo ng, let's say, whatever meat baboy eating festival. Kakancelin ng owner yan, ng Muslim owners or ng Muslim congregation. What are you going to do about it? That's their religious freedom. If you go ahead with it, same thing with the iglesia scenario, what do you think is going to happen? Right? And alam nung school yan dapat, sila yung nag-rent ng venue, alam nila kung anong association that's governing that venue, so they should have done their due diligence on what could happen if they decide to go with that activity. Babanggain nila yung religious freedom, right? Another one, quick example, let's say sa mga kapatid nating Mormons, right? Ang founder nila ay si Joseph Smith. So what if kumuha ka ng venue that's governed by Mormons? And then yung nilagay mong speaker dun sa venue na yon, a day before, sinolidify nyo ay somebody na anti-Joseph Smith ideology. Anong gagawin ng Church of Mormon? Of course they're going to cancel that. That's their venue. That's within their religious freedom, right? So as far as I'm concerned, I mean, weighing all of the, let's say, sides dito sa storya na to, sa Church of God, and pati kay Madam Sasot, I think the blame should be laid on the school, which is SPIST. They didn't do their due diligence, or if they did, obviously we need to call them out on the stunt. Kasi it's a stunt, essentially, right? Kung they're a school, so they should have done their due diligence. Na itong Church of God, they're against anything LGBTQ, right? Now, if they knew that, and the assumption is they knew that, then stunt na to kasi nga they knew that was going to happen. And sinabi din ng pastor na if you did this, A and B is going to happen, right? That was defined for them. But they still decided to go ahead with the event, right? So essentially, they acted in bad faith. Itong SPIST, that's what I'm saying, right? And on the part of Miss Sasot or Madam Sasot, I think based on the video, the little video that I've seen, I feel like she was genuinely surprised by it. So that adds to the argument na itong SPIST, alam na nila yung mangyayari, and they didn't tell the speaker, or they didn't inform the speaker about what was told to them by the church governing the venue. So it all points to the fact na medyo bad faith talaga yung ginawa ng school, right? Pinahamak pa nila yung guest speaker nila, right? Now, what if Miss Sasot knew about that? Then, medyo hypothetical na to, pero that's a different side of the argument. So that means she would have been complicit to that stunt. Kasi nga, alam na nila na meron ganung stance yung church, and they decided to go ahead with it still. Right? Pero I'm not weighing towards that, kasi it seems like she didn't know about it. Now, how hard could it be to follow the rules of the venue? I mean, yes, yun ang nilay down the rules. We have to follow them. It's their house, their rules. Ang condition nila, ibabalik naman yung pere. Kahit na 12 hours. I know medyo gipit yung 12 hours, right? But you could always find a different venue. You have the money, binalik sa inyong pera. Or postpone it. Right? If you really want to keep Miss Sasot, postpone it. Find a different venue. Maybe 2 days or 3 days. Medyo gipit yung 12 hours. But that could have been easily remedied, right? Instead of pulling through with an event na alam nyo, winarningan na kayo na iyon yung mangyayari, right? So we have to weigh it. Religious freedom and LGBTQ discrimination, right? May point naman yung dalawang kampo, but we have to remember their house, their rules. Okay, sayang sana kung napasa na yung SOGI bill, and I had to look it up. Kala ko napasa na siya, pero yung SOGI bill, hindi pa siya pasa. It's still within the Senate hearings. And yung SOGI bill, hindi naman niya, as far as I know, hindi naman niya covered yung religious entities, right? So, meron pa rin religious freedom, right? So, kung may SOGI bill sana, merong may ngipin sana that she could ask for help on. Pero wala pang SOGI bill. So, parang as far as the law is concerned, yung provincial ordinance pa lang, yung medyo babangga doon, right? Pero again, kapag ni-raise yung provincial ordinance, paano naman yung religious freedom sa saligang batas natin, right? Okay, so I'll leave it at that. Please look at the 2 pages if you wanna look more into it. Punta tayo doon sa good news and bad news part ng ating talakayan. Where we always aim to have a balanced view kasi nga Pilipino tayo, so we need to support the administration. I'll keep talking about this. Pasensya na, sobrang silang plaka, pero we need to have both views. Okay, good news. Nakita natin sa feed natin, sobrang sama yung traffic enforcer sa Mandaluyong na nasagasaan. Sinagasaan, I should say. Ang pangalan niya ay si Christian Floralde. Nasa ICU yata siya ngayon, right? Ang good news that I wanted to share ay dahil dun sa dashcam video, nakita yung license plate nung sumagasa kay Sir Floralde. And etong LTO, mabilis silang umaksyon. We have to commend that, right? So, gumawa na sila ng show cause order for the owner of the vehicle. So, Pinoy daw yung owner ng vehicle. Siyempre, hindi natin alam kung yun yung nagda-drive. And nagpadala na nung lawyer yung owner ng vehicle dun sa LTO kasi nga nag-show cause order na sila. Now, magkakaroon sila ng hearing tomorrow, June 7, about the incident. Nakita nyo naman yung incident, sobrang walang puso. And dun sa nakita natin na video, nakalagay na caption, pure evil. And I kinda have to agree with that, right? Sinagasaan mo ba naman yung tao, di ba? Walang puso talaga. So, bukas meron silang hearing, so good job yan sa LTO. Good job sila dyan. Next, good news natin. Sandigan Bayan ay binasura yung bid ni Napoles, ni Janet Napoles, na related sa PDAF na scam. Medyo nakalimutan na natin si Janet Napoles, pero to refresh your memory, ito yung paggamit ng pork barrel or PDAF or Presidential Development Assistance Fund sa mga bogus na proyekto, sa mga NGO, sa mga foundation na hindi naman talaga nag-exist, Right? Madaming mga politikong nadamay dyan, pero hindi ko naisa-isahin. I think alam niyo na kung sino-sino sila. So, nag-file siya ng petition na i-dismiss daw ng Sandigan Bayan yung 15 million graft case niya related dun sa pork barrel scam. Pero ang good news doon ay binasura ng Sandigan Bayan yung petition na yon. So, good. Sana hindi natin makalimutan si Janet Napoles. Okay, next. Third good news, DOJ. Ito yung current DOJ pa natin, Menardo Guevara. Sinabi ng DOJ na yung Bucor daw hindi nasunod yung proper rules dun sa SMNI interview kay Palparan, kay Jovito ba? Kay Palparan, right? So SMNI, ito yung pag-aari ni Kiboloy Sunshine. I keep remembering Sunshine, hindi pala Sunshine Media Network. So sabi ni Guevara, marami daw hindi nasunod dun sa interview. Hindi daw dapat natuloy yung interview na yon kay Palparan. Sino yung nag-interview? If I'm not mistaken, si Ma'am Badoy ng NTF-ELCA. Correct me if I'm mistaken, pero I think siya yon. So sabi ni Guevara, DOJ Secretary, persons deprived of liberty, especially yung mga high-profile cases kagaya ni Palparan, require authorization from the Justice Secretary. So meaning kailangan ng letter galing sa kanya mismo kay Menardo Guevara na may mangyayaring interview. Walang ganun. So, dapat daw walang discussion of pending cases with the media. So apparently may pending cases pa or ongoing cases against Palparan. So, dapat walang ganong discussion. Pero I guess na-discuss siya. Right? Tapos, medyo twin good news there. Ni-reaffirm ng Court of Appeals yung decision kay Palparan. And in-adjust pa nilang interest para dun sa mga naghabla against kay Palparan. So, good. Very good. Okay. So, pinag-explain ni Guevara ngayon ng DOJ yung Bucor. Bakit daw? Right? Baka malamang patungan daw nila ng parusa yung Bucor or whoever's responsible there kung hindi just yung kanilang pag-explain. So, antabayanan natin yan. Okay. Punta tayo ngayon sa bad news part of the discussion. Number 1 dito happened maybe a week ago, 5 days ago. Meron tayong nakita sa newsfeed natin, merong BIR officer sa Zamboanga, Sibugay na nahulihan. NBI agency yata yung nagkaroon ng entrapment operation ng 500,000 sa ilalim ng kanyang lamesa. So, based dun sa reports, padulas daw yun. Padulas na binayad ng whistleblower yung nag-complain sa NBI because of tax delinquencies. Meron daw tax delinquencies na parang 30 million itong business owner na to. So, itong BIR officer sa Zamboanga, Sibugay sa Ipil, na nanghingi ng 1 million na padulas para mawala yung tax delinquencies. So, itong 500,000, ito yung parang down payment sa padulas na 1 million. So, nagsumbong na lang siya dun sa NBI and great job. Bad news siya dahil may ganitong palakaran, pero great job dun sa NBI na nagkaroon ng entrapment operation. So, I'm glad na nahuli yan. Sana more, let's say, BIR officers or kung sino mang kawani ng gobyerno maimbestigahan ng NBI about this, right? Okay, another good news, or bad news I should say. Jeremiah Belihica, kapatid ni Greco Belihica na hindi nagwagi sa pagtakbo sa Senado. So, ombudsman, ang ating ombudsman ay ginawan siya or pinatawan sila dahil maliban sa kanya 4 officers pa sa same government agency. Pinatawan sila ng preventive suspension. Ano tong agency na to? Very ironic. Anti-Red Tape Agency or ARTA. So sabi ng ombudsman, meron daw katiwaliang nangyari na nag-assign sila ng frequency na dapat kay dito ibinigay nila sa 4th telecom natin, which is Now Telecom. So hindi daw nagkaroon ng due process na inassign nila yung dapat para kay dito, binigay nila dun sa Now Telecom. So, preventive suspension sila ngayon. Si Jeremiah Belhica, pati yung 4 na opisyal sa Anti-Red Tape Authority or ARTA. Hindi ko alam na may ganong agency. Ano kaya yung nagawa nila? Parang same kay Greco Belhica. Meron palang Presidential Anti-Corruption Commission. Yun yung kapatid niya. Ano kaya yung ginawa ng PACC from the last 6 years? Hindi natin alam. I need to read more. Okay. And last na lang sa bad news natin, oil increase. Produktong petrolyo, in the next day sa diesel, 6.50 ang itataas per litro. Tapos sa gas naman ay 2.75 ang itataas sa gas. So, medyo alam natin pataas yung oil na prices per barrel, pero nagkaroon ng up and down for the past days, right? Pero nagkaroon ba na-follow ba yung up and down in the world market for the past couple of weeks? Nagkaroon ng aumento, pero hindi ganun kalaki yung aumento, right? Pero nung nagka-increase uli, going to $120 per barrel, sumipa uli yung increase natin dito sa Pilipinas. Parang hindi pa nga nakahinga from the past increases. Hindi pa enough yung aumento. Pero sumipa agad. Imagine, 6.50 sa per liter ng diesel. Right? Masakit yan. So much so na sinasabi na nga nung mga trade organization na nagbebenta ng pandesal, mag-increase sila ng 4 na piso dun sa pandesal pack. Yung Pinoy pandesal, 4 na piso yung itataas. Tapos sa sardinas naman, yung mga trade organization na nagbebenta, mag-increase daw sila ng piso kada sardinas. And then in the succeeding months, mag-increase sila ng 1 or 150 per month dun sa mga sardinas na binibili. So, lalo pang maapektuhan yung mga basic necessities natin. So, still rooting for the economic team. Sana meron silang magawa against, runaway inflation, or else hindi lang middle class yung magsasuffer, but, class D and E especially ang masasaktan if tuloy-tuloy yung pag-increase ng langis sa merkado, sa overall world market. And that's all we have for today. Salamat sa mga nanonood. And I just want to plug before leaving you guys na reminder lang, I guess, na lahat ng content natin, YouTube man, nilalagay ko na pala sa YouTube tong video na to. I discovered how to. YouTube man, Facebook Live man, or Instagram, or sa Twitter. I don't know how to monetize that. Pero eventually, lahat ng content natin, lahat ng eventual monetization, matagal pa yon, ay i-donate natin for the cause that we believe in, which is the Angat Buhay NGO. So please, share this content para lumaki pa yung audience natin, para habang nanonood na tayo, meron pa tayong naambag dun sa Angat Buhay NGO. Yun lang, maraming salamat. Good night. Bye!